Hello, everybody. It's Paul from Esalen Research, and I'm here to guide you through this play on low performer diagnosis. Look, this play is very important, and it's one that a lot of people skip. Why? Because they think they have the answers, right? It's very common to think, okay, I know the problem, I know who my low performers are, we can just kind of get on with it. But really, it's important to slow down and diagnose carefully, really because the diagnosis will kind of inform the next steps. And every step of this playbook, there's different forks in the road. And this really starting from the very first one right here with diagnosis. So in order to do a proper diagnosis, I've given you a worksheet. And the worksheet really is all about diagnosing problems in terms of skill issues, aptitude issues, or preference issues. Okay, this is the top level diagnosis. Let's go through each one. Skills are things that are really concrete and learnable. This is kind of the key, right? So if you have a lack of a technical skill, let's say in a technical job, right? Well, one way to remediate that is frankly to invest in the person and give them the skills, right? And to really make an earnest effort to train people. A lot of times people just assume that maybe they should have known this, but the question is, can you train them, right? And have you made an honest effort? So for each box, I'm going to suggest a 3-color coding: red, not meeting expectations; yellow, barely there; and green is you're okay. I also suggest doing a trend line. This is also very important. You want to diagnose here, is this person trending up, trending down? What's the problem here, right? So the other thing about skills is that often is very amenable to mentorship, right? If you can mentor somebody and train somebody, that's the key to maybe getting the skills area out of the red and into a yellow or green. Now, if you feel like you've already tried hard to address any skill gaps, well, then maybe it's not a skill gap that's the issue. Because we move on to the next box, and that's aptitudes, okay? An aptitude is simply sort of a little bit more innate. I'm not going to say it's untrainable because it absolutely can be improved upon, and I've seen a lot of success stories here. But really, aptitudes are things that are a little bit less trainable, okay? Things like your critical thinking ability, okay, your communication skills. Of course, we can all improve our communication skills, but it's more of a core aptitude than it is just a learnable skill. So those are the things to look for there in aptitudes. Now, one thing I will say about both skills and aptitudes is if you have a really solid performance review system, and we can talk more about that, it's a different playbook, but if you have a really solid performance review system, this data really should just come out of performance reviews, right? It shouldn't just be sort of off the cuff. You should be able to actually measure this and put a number on it. Now, one thing I'll say about aptitudes is that really over time, these things don't really trend or change as much as skills, because we can all learn new skills and get really, really good at something brand new. But aptitudes tend to be a little bit, a bit of a slower rate of change on those. So if you do see something, like one red flag to look for is you see someone's aptitude just nosedive, for example, like if their productivity nosedives, well, it's usually something, to really investigate closely. Like, why is that? Is there something going on in this person's life that's causing that, right? Because it'd be very unusual to see someone who's normally, good productivity just simply nosedive, right? So it's something that we actually expect to see, for most people at least, a little bit more consistency in the area of aptitudes. Now, preferences. Preferences simply, is it a culture fit? Does this person feel like they're in a job where they can do their best work? So is it a quality match, in other words, between the role and the individual? So I encourage you to go through this. Even if you think you know the answer, write it down, use performance review data to corroborate what you're saying, and go through this kind of analysis, right? So again, 3 big tips to the diagnosis. One is big slopes in aptitude are red flags. Really shouldn't happen. That's usually kind of an unusual type of event. Now, if it's a bad preference fit, the obvious thing there is to try to see, frankly, if you can put the person in a different role. The warning there is you don't want to make up roles, right? Figure out what roles you have available without sort of trying to create a job. That's actually a big failure mode that we see in a lot of companies. How they deal with low performers is they just make up a job, make up a role that isn't actually essential, and they put them there and they kind of forget about the person. So you don't want to do that. However, you do want to be thoughtful. I have seen managers that aren't really trying enough to match roles with people. So make sure you're doing that. And then again, on those skills, really going to ask yourself, can you address this, or at least attempt to address it by training and mentoring? Okay, do the analysis, and then we'll come back for the next play and see what we can do with that.